So
Hey guys, this is the Mullet. I'm here with my best friend Lou. Been knowing him since I was like 15, 16, some
14.
years. And he got some stories, I think.
Oh, I think we have some stories about one another, and I think we have some stories that I have personally. But some of the best times that I had were with Jimmy, and usually involving somebody else or weed or weed and girls. And my wife is doing the recording, so if you see the recording getting a little shaky,
It's off a mess.
it's because she's like,
You see the phone flying?
yeah. So with the phone, it's gonna bounce off my head or Jimmy's.
We'll pick it right back up, boy.
Yeah, we'll pick it up. Keep going. The first, and I mean Jimmy and I became friends on the school bus. I was 12, and he was, like he said, 14 or 15 years old, and he's still 3 years older than me. I never caught up. When
Catching up, but not yet.
I was younger, and I thought I might catch up, and I never did. He saved a seat for me on the bus, and we became fast friends after that. And he went through a bunch of cars. He every 6 months or so he would tear a car up, and it would either get a new motor or
I had to dust it for like what, 2 years, 3 years. But yeah, we tore it.
yeah, you knocked the pan out of it. You blew the engine. You knocked the pan out again, and then you had that Chrysler Cordoba, and you broke the A-frame on it, and then you tried to drive to Arizona on it with a broken A-frame that was just sitting there clunking. And anyway, he had a Chrysler Cordoba, and he broke the A-frame, and he had it welded a couple of times. I had a friend of mine named Roger that welded it for him one time, and it lasted till we got out of the driveway, and then it started clunking again. But we went down to Uncle Lawrence's house, and Uncle Lawrence lived in a bus on the back side of his property, and Jimmy can fill you in. It was like 2 or 3 acres of property, and the property, how many?
It's 1 acre.
1 acre?
Yeah, it's 1 acre,
but it was woody as hell.
Yeah, woody.
And we were all sitting around. Uncle Lawrence was talking, shooting the shit, and nobody liked Uncle Lawrence. Uncle Lawrence was the black sheep of the family, and for good reason. He was a miscreant. He was a black sheep.
He lived his life his way.
He unswervingly lived his life the way he wanted to, and he didn't want to pay the water bill anymore, so he opened up the where they read the meter, and he poured concrete in there one time, and they came out there and they busted it. He concreted the damn thing anyway, and he had 10 sacks of concrete, and he would fill it up every time. Anyway, we went down there, and it was late one night. We were sitting there shooting the shit, and I said, "Hey, Uncle Lawrence, I got to take a leak. Where can I go to take a leak?" He said, "Back around the backside of the bus," and he kind of laughed like, and I went around the back of the bus, and there was a stream running through, and I peed in the stream. And came back around, and they said, "Did you see anything?" And I was like, "Saw my Peter. Didn't see anything else." And they said, "Go back around." I went back around, and this time I was looking, and I smelled weed, but I didn't see any, right? I just saw weeds that were about that big around and growing everywhere. And I smelled weed really strong. I came back around and I said, I didn't see anything, but I smelled weed. And Jimmy said, come here, let me show you. And he went over there and he grabbed a weed limb or he grabbed what looked like a young tree and said, this is weed. And I said, no, that's a tree. And he said, no, man, look up. And I looked up and there were buds this long. Anyway, Uncle Lawrence, we shoot the shit. We gotta go. We left, and before we left, he gave us a grocery bag. Jimmy takes the grocery bag, and it's got a bud in it that it was an old paper grocery bag, and the weed is sticking out one side in a U shape, sticking out the other side. And we put it in the trunk, and we haul, and we start on the way, and it's in the trunk, and I'm like, whoa, Jimmy, man, this is bad, dude. This is real bad. If we get pulled over, we're gonna have to run for it, and then you're gonna have to call the cops in the morning and say when you woke up your car was gone. And he was like, why? And I'm like, dude, I smell nothing but the weed in this car, dude. We're gonna be in trouble if you get pulled over. And if we even drive by a cop car, he's gonna smell it just by driving by. And we made it home. And I asked him the next day when he came over, I said, what'd you do with that weed? He was like, man, I didn't know what to do with that weed. I said, you could put it in the oven and dry it out, I think, or something, you know. And he said, man, Mom wouldn't let me do that, man. And this is where Jimmy steps in and tells you what he did with the weed, because to this day, it remains fuzzy what he did with it.
It's still fuzzy. I got rid of it.
I don't blame you.
I got rid of it. I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like,
it's too much.
You think I do? Oh no, I did not know. No, you know, I could have brought it to someone's house and go here, but
like,
I
here, break this
car.
up for me. Yeah. But you don't want to drive around town with something like that in the trunk.
Nope.
That's like having in Louisiana, in West Monroe, you might as well have you'd be better off having a dead body in the trunk of your car than to have a bud that size, because you're not going to want to squeal on Uncle Lawrence.
Oh no. And
on top of that, he's going to think the first thing you did is squeal. And he knows people in the pokey.
Yeah, I got rid of it. Like I said, I can't remember what I did with it. Actually, probably we lived in the woods anyway. Probably just dumped it off, guys.
I don't blame you, dude.
I couldn't do it.
It was. I mean, now you know it's a little regretful, you know. But I mean, I couldn't have took it. I mean, my parents would have skinned me alive, and
yeah.
It don't matter now.
And I would have never seen you. I mean, we would. Your parents went, no more Jimmy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my parents loved Jimmy more than they loved me. They hated me, but they loved Jimmy.
I went over a couple of times. You couldn't go out until they seen me. Then they let you go out.
Yeah, they let me go out with Jimmy because they thought Jimmy was a good guy. Boy,
they knew.
Boy, they were wrong. Remember that time that we went to Jessica's house late at night. Her parents were gone, right? And
K5. Oh no.
Her brother Jason, right? Big dude, big weightlifter dude. And Jimmy and I were skinny little love machines, you know. We weren't muscled up in any way. We were made for fun. And she said, come around to the window and sneak in through the window. I said, okay, no problem. We're going to sneak in through the window. Came over, knocked on the, titter-tattered on the window. She opened it, popped the screen off. Jimmy goes in. I go in. and Jimmy's sitting there making out with Jessica, and I'm sitting there making out with, I can't even remember her name. She was Hawaiian, so she wasn't a big girl, but she was well built, you know. And we were sitting there making out, and there's a knock on the door, right? Jimmy gets and goes under the bed, under Jessica's bed, and I, being a little bitty, you know, I was a little bitty guy, I scrunch up behind what's her name, and I can see, like, just a peephole. I can see Jason talking to Jessica, and I could see Jimmy down there, and his eyes were that big around, and he was like this, and he was like,
all I can see is shoes.
he was like, what the did you do? What are we gonna do? And I was like, oh my God, we're bad word, expletive deleted. It was so messed up, right? Well, it's all over with. Jason talks and then he leaves, right? Jimmy jumps back up on the bed, but he's ready. He's limp. He's limp. He pops out the window. Me, that girl was ready to go. She was like ready to go, and I'm like, talking about going, girl, I gotta go. I pop out the window too. That was the end of that. That's the smack dab end of that story. We never snuck into another girl's room ever again. But let me tell you what solidified my relationship with Jimmy. I think of Jimmy not as a friend, but as a brother, because I used to ride motorcycles, and I had a little 450 Custom, and a little old lady pulled out in front of me, and I laid it down and I wrecked and broke my collarbone. It was pretty bad. The broken collarbone was, but I had a young body, and I recovered pretty quickly. But anyway, the tow company was right down the road from our house, right? I had presence of mind. I told them which tow company to use. They used it, and they towed it, right? It was like a half a mile from our house, and the bike had been wrecked, and it busted the headlight, but the triple tree wasn't bent or anything like that. It was all straight, right? Yeah. And it still cranked. It would crank and everything. So Jimmy and my girlfriend at the time, let me back up a little bit. Jimmy called. He said, hey man, I'm coming over. And he said, we're going out. And I said, no dude, just go ahead and go out. Have yourself a fun time. Don't worry about me. I'm at home, dude. I'm okay.
I didn't buy it.
And Jimmy didn't buy it. Jimmy came over anyway. He sees I'm all messed up, and was I puking when you were over?
No, you
I had already finished puking, but I was puking pretty good because for some reason you get really nauseated when you have a broken bone. And I puked, and I was puking pretty good. And my Aunt Goldie was there, and she was taking good care of me, but she was pretty kind of loopy. But anyway, Jimmy was taking pretty good care of me, I think. And he brought me something to drink, you know, and everything. And then he said, Jennifer, my girlfriend at the time, came over, or had heard that I was in a wreck and came over. And Jimmy asked where the bike was. And I told him, and Mom said, you know, we're going to have to pay for, what do you call it? Impound fees if it stays overnight. And Jimmy said, well, let's go get it. And Mom was like, you know how to ride? And Jennifer was like, no. And Jimmy was like, I ain't riding it. He just wrecked it. That's bad luck. That's bad juju. So what they do is they push that bike on the road with my mom with the hazards on that half mile to our house. Not even a brother would have done something like that. You know what I'm saying? Not even a brother would, not one of my brothers would push a bike a half a mile. Vic, Art, Jack, I love y'all to death, brother. But this man proved himself to be solid. He is, along with my wife, the ride or die. Him and my wife are my ride or die. That's all there is to it. They made it to the bike, and every day I would get on that bike with my broken collarbone and my clavicle brace. I would put my hand on the clutch and I would try to squeeze it every day. I would get out there on that bike, and the day that I could squeeze that clutch, I cranked it up, put it in neutral, and took off, and I went around the block, right? I went around the block. The first day, I went around the block once. The second day of me being able to pull the clutch in, I went around the block twice. Going a little faster each day, getting my speed up, handling the curve, getting the feel for the bike again, trying to stay, trying to not be looped about it, and trying not to be scared, right, of riding a bike, and not get. I had to ride it, because if I wouldn't have jumped back on it, I would have been scared the rest of my life. And the stories of me and Jimmy, him and his Chrysler Cadoba, and later on in that old 70s model.
Yeah, 71 Dusty was the first car I bought.
No, that truck. That
Ford.
Crappy ass.
Ford Scottsdale pickup.
Yep.
75, I think.
Yep. Boy, that was a terrible truck.
All my cars were terrible. But we had to buy terrible stuff because I was a terrible person driving them.
Okay, now this one, he comes by, picks me up, and he said, just got this motor in my car. And I said, cool, man. I had no idea. It was like Saturday afternoon, I had just gotten off work, and I don't know where Jimmy had been, but I guess he had been home, because this dude put an engine in Jimmy's car. And Jimmy said, just got it. So we went for a ride. And back then, gas was what?
75 cents?
It was nothing. We lived in Louisiana, and everything was cheap, right?
And that Louisiana is an 8 square mile town.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The whole town you can drive in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And we went through this little strip mall. It was the only strip mall at the time in West Monroe. It was Glenwood
Mall.
Glenwood Mall, right? And it used to have a movie theater and everything, but Glenwood Hospital bought it.
Subway.
Yeah, it used to have a Subway.
You worked at Subway.
Yeah. And anyway, we were going through there, and Jimmy was hauling ass. He didn't just stomp it. He stomped it and then stomped it again to make it go into what is it called? Overdrive. You're right. Passing gear.
Yeah.
Like that, the old cars didn't have the overdrive. They didn't call it overdrive. They called it passing gear. Well, he hit the passing gear, and that thing opened up and brazed up and hauled ASS, and he hit a trough, a dip in the road, and I looked over at Jimmy, and Jimmy was shaking his head, and I said, "You hit the oil pan, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah, I think I hit the oil pan." And we stopped, and we got out, we looked, and oil was just blowing out of that hole he knocked in it. And I was like, dude, we got to stop and call a tow truck. And he's like, no, man, I think I can make it home.
You made it home.
And we made it home. And that dude
Made one phone call.
That dude, no, he was still there at your house. He was doing something to your dad's car.
Yeah, he was.
He was doing something
right,
to
he
your
was.
dad's car, and we went there, told him what happened, and he was like, "Well, I'll just take this this old pan and put this old pan."
I had 2 cars at that time.
You had 2 cars.
He took the one off the other one.
He took the one off the other car and put it, but this is what he did. That old pan that Jimmy had knocked out was a normal old pan, right? For a normal straight 6 Chrysler or Dodge engine. I'm not good with cars. Slant 6, right? Well, he puts in a deep well, oil pan, right? And I didn't think nothing of it, but he said it's the oil pan that came with it. I was saving it because I was gonna use it because you were trading him out an engine and a car for the engine to redo the engine and stuff in that car, right? Well, later, probably 2 weeks later, a month maybe, we were on Well Road going towards Ruston, right? And it had an extra long, what do you call it? Like the road where you get up, the passing, the road, the part of the road where you come onto the interstate, right? Well, it was extra long at Well Road, and Jimmy gets that car up fast in that little short amount of time. He stomps on it, and that car just fucking, excuse my language, squats down and hauls, right? Didn't see the cop behind us. Jimmy has a silver tongue. It's amazing. Anyway, Jimmy's scared, duckless, pulls over, and the cop said 140. I heard it. You were doing 140. Jimmy pops out of the car, and the guy said, whoa, 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 whoa. The cop says, stop right there. Don't approach me. You were doing 140. And I'm sitting there cowering, right? Because I just knew Jimmy was, and we were going to jail. Car was going impounded. I had weed on me. We were in trouble. Jimmy said, I didn't think it'd go that fast. There's no way it goes that fast. And the dude said, yeah, there is. You were going 140. I clocked you at 140. My car got up to 140, just barely kept up with you. I know you were doing 140. Jimmy's like, man, I only got a slant 6 in there. That cop says, if you got a slant 6 in that car, I'll let you go right now. You can take it and go. Jimmy said, I'm telling you, it's got a slant 6 in it. Reaches in there and he said, man, I hope this car has a slant 6. He pops the hood, right? Opens it up, looks down at it, got a slant 6. Cop comes around, looks at it, got a slant 6. That cop says, must be a racing slant 6, because there's no way that could be a normal slant 6, but it was like a 300 or something like that. Slant 6. It was extra booty. It had that ass. And that cop said, all right, slow it down, keep it down to the speed limit, and I don't want to see you guys again.
And I was going over double the speed limit.
Yeah, you were going fast enough to be charged with homicide,
Oh yeah.
attempted homicide.
140, 55, 65.
55 at the time. It was Reagan
Almost
years still.
Almost 100 on the speed limit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it wasn't like, please, driver, step out the car. It's, Jimmy, can you step out the car? Now, they knew me by name.
They knew Jimmy. Jimmy, we got pulled. He had a Subaru, like a 71 Subaru.
Subaru Coupe.
Yep. Had 3 forward gears, right?
Three cylinder.
3 cylinder.
50 miles to the gallon.
It ran. That's all it did. But it had.
There wasn't no breaking speed limits in that one.
No, there wasn't breaking no speed limits. But he had 2 headlights, but the headlights were stuck on bright, right? They were stuck on bright. So what he did, speaking of bright, he had a bright idea of unplugging one of them, so only one of them would work, and he got pulled over for having one headlight. He talks to the cop. He plugs it in, shows the cop that both of them work, but he unplugged one of them because it's stuck on high beam. And the cop said, that's pretty smart, but get it fixed. I thank you very much. I'm not going to write you a ticket, but I'm going to give you a warning. And the cops didn't say Mr. Sanders or anything like that. They said Jimmy. And they had, I don't know what Jimmy did in his spare time when I wasn't around, but somehow they knew Jimmy so well that they stopped calling him Mr. Sanders, Mr. Jimmy. It was all Jimmy. Don't do this. Jimmy, I'm going to give you a warning this time. Jimmy, I'm going to give you another warning, but I swear this is getting old. I mean, you toe the line on this stuff, and I don't see how you can get by with it, but you sit there and you talk your way out of such situations, and I'll be honest.
They pulled me over and said, it's funny, every time we pull you over, we don't have nothing on you to arrest you for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
But that was pretty good stories. But we'll make another podcast with more stories from Louisiana. Yeah. So this is my best friend Lou and the Mullet signing out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more stories. Out.